dun, 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 dun. In a world where there's a need for acquisition warriors, the founder and CEO of Boone gives us one piece of advice, and that's to give a damn.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dolores. It is amazing to be here with everybody. And I just can't wait to dive in. Find something you care about and give a damn, Joy Angela. These are the words that my Italian grandfather said to me as a little girl. I've spent my whole life searching for something to give a damn about. And honestly, I think that's a lot of us in this remote room, because that's kind of the point. See, change happens when people choose to act. Change happens when people choose to act. I remember the first time I stepped inside a USA boxing ring, okay? Thousands of hours of blood, sweat, and tears, and nothing prepared me for the moment that her glove connected with my body. I completely froze. Luckily, I was saved by the bell, and I went back to my corner and I sat down, and my coach said, Joy, you were in a fight. Yes, thank you. No kidding. Like I didn't just feel that, right? He said, Joy, you're in a fight. There is nothing else I can do for you. You have prepared for this moment. You've got conviction here. Now I need to see it come through your movement. Can you do that? Well, see, I had two choices, right? Quit or fight on. Quit or fight on. And conviction is a really, really, really powerful thing. See, conviction can sway juries. It can inspire inventions, or it can win fights, which let the record show I did win, by the way. See, I first sought out on this journey to understand if you can train for conviction, right? Can you train for it? Can you buy it? Can you borrow it? Can you develop it? Or is it something that you are just born with, right? Which led me to another question. Are warriors born or are they made? And what can we learn from them? So to answer this question, I went straight to the top. I marched to Tier 1 mission planning with Tony Thomas and Chris Miller to understand warrior mindsets from their perspective. I had the opportunity to step into the brains of Leon Panetta and by proxy, Admiral McRaven, understanding Operation Neptune Spear. I marched onto the production line floors with Ellen Lord and Frank Kendall to understand ACAT Level 1 mission production planning. And the answer I got, as we all deliberated, are warriors born or are they made? The answer really surprised me. See, I think we've forgotten our priorities. The way we fight, the way we win, it depends on one variable and one variable only. It's not our industries, our technologies, or even our weapons that create the warrior. It's the people behind the platforms, the people who show up when the odds are stacked against them, people who give a damn, people with a warrior mentality, people like you. See, the determining factor of success or failure in a warrior mindset came down in all my conversations with conviction. Convictions can beat monsters. It can lead an underdog army to victory, or it can breed the greatest of all time. So one of my favorite interviews, right, was Secretary Panetta. And part of it is because he reminded me so much of my grandfather, Ben, growing up, right, an Italian from Detroit, which some of you know. And we got to argue about, whose family pasta recipe was better. And it was a lot of fun. Well, he explained to me when I asked him, how he could have the confidence to make the choice during the Bin Laden mission. How could he say yes? How could he be so sure? And he said, Joy, as Secretary of Defense, I saw the importance of leadership to our democracy. And wherever I went, I met with people who put their lives on the line to fight and die for this country. And I said, okay, that seems quite logical. He said, the key quality I saw, though, in preparing for the Bin Laden mission, working with Admiral McRaven, was a group of individuals who had a willingness to commit to something higher than themselves. And this came through every single fiber of their being. I had ultimate confidence in their ability to do the job. ultimate confidence. So I could say yes. Now, this was not the case in 11th century BC, okay? King Saul was forced into hope as a method. You know this story. See, there's this epic standoff between the Israelites and the Philistines. And because of how the mountain and valley region is situated, basically both armies are in a complete standoff for days, right? And to attack the other side, you have to come up into the valley and up the other side. So either side is completely exposed. So there's this tradition in ancient warfare. It's called single combat. And single combat is utilized to basically spare bloodshed, right? There's a little bit of delay on my side, on the technical side. There we go. Okay. So it's used to spare bloodshed. So what happens is King Saul, this young shepherd boy David, he goes and he says, hey, I've got this, right? Goliath is a monster, completely dangerous. And King Saul says, David, you can't do this. This is a death wish. Here, take my armor. Please do this, right? See, he assumes that David is going to fight in a hand-to-hand combat. He miscalculates David's gift. How often do we assume the warfighter absolutely needs the piece of equipment, weapon, technology we are developing without understanding the full picture? In ancient warfare, there are three kinds of warriors, right? There's cavalry, heavy infantry, and there's artillery. And artillery are archers. And archers were the single determining factor against artillery 99% of the time. David knows this, and he can enter into the situation knowing that his timing and speed are going to beat power. He knows that his value is a lot more than just strength and muscles. And you know how the story ends, obviously. So rule number one in adapting a warrior mentality is to be valuable. Be valuable. Somewhere along the way, we assumed, like Saul, that everyone needs our armor. And we forgot our mindset to show up and seek understanding can actually save lives. See, David had conviction, right? He knew he could add value to a seemingly impossible situation. He also understood the factors of warfare. He wasn't the mightiest of warriors, but he knew his value and he doubled down. And guess what? Your value may not look like somebody else's, but that doesn't make you any less valuable. So rule number one in developing your warrior mentality is to be valuable. Now, Ellen Lord said a warrior mentality to her was the ability to adapt to any terrain. The ability to adapt to any terrain. What did she mean by that? And what does that mean for us? Well, to adapt to situations in real time, you must train for different terrains, right? You can't do something the same way. That's the way we've always done it. For the acquisition workforce, people's lives depend on it. Well, around 1412, there's this young girl, and she's born in a village in France. Okay, it's located, the village specifically is located between France and the Holy Roman Empire. It's a place of conflicting loyalties because of that. So, half of the village are loyal to France, half are loyal to the Roman Empire. And this is a place where children fight other children, sometimes to the death. So are we really that surprised that a young girl in the 1400s was able to convince an entire magistrate to let her lead the French to victory? No, of course not. Joan of Arc trained in this terrain. So May 1428, Joan makes her way, to a nearby village that's a stronghold of King Charles. And she asks the local magistrate for troops to escort her to the crown prince's palace, but she gets turned down, right? She says, I am chosen for this. This is the one thing that Joan gives a damn about. And quite frankly, nobody cares. I'm just going to be honest. Nobody cares. They're like, yeah, that's cute. This is a little girl. You can't do anything. Well, because she had so much conviction that she was made for this, she persisted, right? She goes and attracts a local band of followers. She cuts her hair. She dresses in men's clothing. And she relents and she goes back. Finally, the magistrate says, you know what, it's a death wish, but good luck. Well, Joan starts the 11-day journey, and to no surprise, she ends up leading the French to victory with no military training, but persuading others in power to see her as this dependable warrior, right? She leads the French army to victory. See, Joan manifested dependability, and this is our second lesson. Joan didn't beg for the opportunity to lead and shy away from it, shy away from delivering on her mission. She went so far to convince her naysayers. She cut off her hair, she wore men's clothes, and then she delivered. Keyword delivered. She executed, right? She didn't just talk about it. Just as the king was depending on her to actually lead this initiative, she collected other folks to depend on her and carry her vision through. And this is really important. Who depends on us today? To win the battlefield, it starts with each of us, right? How could this story have played out if Joan had a checklist mentality? I can't be a dependable warrior because the status quo says I can't, for example. Would someone else have the gumption to show up? Maybe. But dependability and acquisition means speaking truth to power when called. It's not our job as acquisition professionals to say no, right? It's our job to get to yes. Depend on yourself and not the DFAR, but don't break any laws. It is impossible to be effective without preparation. This is something Ellen told me. She said, I need people, when she was in her position, to understand the authorities they have and use them to the greatest extent possible. How can you adapt these authorities to your current environment and to a future environment? This is what we mean by train in different terrains. Just like the battlefield, we have to understand the landscape, right? We have to understand what's going on around you, what's not, and how to leverage those authorities, as I said, to the greatest extent possible. In other words, where there is preparation, there is no fear. And the byproduct is dependability. Joan depended on herself, and she had conviction. She cut her hair, and she got others to depend on her too. How can you show up and create a mindset of dependability within yourselves and your team? This is the second rule from a warrior: be dependable. Now, one of the first pair of boots on the ground after 9/11 was Chris Miller, former acting Secretary of Defense and head of Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict. And he describes to me that the key ingredient to some of the best warriors he ever had the honor of going to battle with were those who really understood that they were in a fight, right? They were in a fight. He said, see, once you're in the fight, Joy, you have to face the fire. It's going to happen, right? But you have to go toward it because movement in combat is safer than being static. He said, movement in combat safer than being static. In other words, accept your reality and deal with it, right? Accept your reality and deal with it. So the year is 1950, and there's a young boy. He has a run-in with a few thieves in Louisville, Kentucky. The boy's prized possession is his bicycle. He worked very hard to purchase this by himself, and he's furious, right? He's running down the street, and he runs square into a police officer. Police officer looks at the young boy, says, clearly he's in distress, says, young man, are you okay? Can I help you? He said, I'm going to whoop those thieves. They stole my bicycle, right? And the police officer, who is also a local boxing coach, he says 7 words to this young man that changed the course of history. He said, you better learn how to box first. And that leads us to sparking curiosity in what you and I know now as the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. Curiosity is our third ingredient in developing your warrior mentality. Ali didn't take up boxing initially, right? And Martin actually ended up offering to coach him, and eventually their paths line each other up. And obviously, how impressive Ali's background was. So he starts working with these trainers. He eventually gets his style, his stamina, and his system down. Style, stamina, and system. Ali had a showtime personality, okay? He had dazzling footwork. He had great hand speed. That combined to make him a champion unlike his sport had ever seen. His career record was 56 victories, 37 by which of knockout, and 5 losses. He held the world championship at an unprecedented, not one, not two, but 3 times. And in 1960, he was one of the only African-American athletes to hold a gold medal at the height of some of the most painful race riots our country had ever seen. So given all that was stacked against Ali, how did he find the moxie to keep moving forward? Well, he had conviction. See, Ali's curiosity led him to the ring, but he didn't stop there. It continued to lead him to some of the most interesting rooms on the world stage. He met with world leaders such as Queen Elizabeth, Nelson Mandela, Pope John Paul II, and he was even given the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2005. It's one thing to have curiosity, it's another thing to do something with it. And Frank Kendall, now our current Secretary of the Air Force, he defined a warrior as someone who is a strong fighter, determined and focused. However, applied too narrowly, he warned me, the effects are null. He said, Joy, if you are only a warrior without balance, you have a natural inclination to be combative, right? You have useful but dangerous tools. I caution those who adapt a warrior mindset that is one-dimensional. Now, Ali was not one-dimensional. He took his gifts and utilized his presence to make his view on human rights and equality known. This is where curiosity plays such an important role, right? It was Ali's curiosity that led him to boxing, but he didn't stop there. His curiosity about world issues gave him more than his famous title, right? Curiosity gives you a foundation to persuade others, like the greatest of all time. And when you're curious about how and why things work the way that they do and what to do about it, you can fight for what you believe in, right? Not just in national security and in our sphere, but what you believe in as a human, as an individual on this planet. So rule number 3 is be curious. I caution those who adapt a warrior mindset that is one-dimensional. Frank's words really stuck with me. You know, in acquisition, we must tell the truth about what we can and cannot do and what the risks are. We have to curiously accept our reality and deal with it. We cannot be one-dimensional. And there's a certain type of warrior associated with that. So rule number 3 is to be curious. Changing our results on the battlefield, it starts with mindset. And I mentioned, I think our priorities are a little backwards. See, too often we think the tools make the warrior. Was David anything without his sling? Was Joan anything with her hair? Was Ali anything without his gloves? Yes, yes, and yes. Yes, platforms are impressive, but if we only focus on the platforms to help us win, we've already lost. Our people cannot be an afterthought, and that's why I love DEF so much. And newsflash, no one is coming. It is actually up to us. It's not about developing the best weapon system and figuring out the people part later. No. See, people are not the bow on top of the new car. People are the engine, the horsepower, the single determining factor of getting from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. It's the people that design the systems. People figure out creative ways to contract. And when everything else fails, who do we send to the front lines? People. Be valuable. Put your name on something you fundamentally believe is true, like David's value as a slinger warrior. Be dependable. Speak truth to power when called, like Joan's dependability as a young warrior. And be curious. Find a way forward, even if the terrain is unfamiliar, like Ali's curiosity navigating the world stage on humanitarian issues. Without a deliberate intent to show up, we fail. To understand the most powerful mindsets in the world, I went straight to the top. Who or what amplifies the ability to adapt with conviction? Warriors do. You have prepared for this moment. There's nothing else I can do for you. You've got conviction here. Now I want to see it come through everybody's actions. Go forward. Can you do that? I challenge you to show up. I dare you to face your giant, to charge into an impossible situation that is unknown. And I challenge you to claim you're the greatest of all time and then put in the work to get there. See, my favorite people in the world are those who give a damn and those who do something about it. I dare each of you to do both. Thank you so much. We will now open up for questions and discussion because I like two-way conversation. It'll be fun. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Joy. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm feeling very inspired on this Friday to take action and conquer the day. Looking at the Q&A, I think we're waiting for some questions to come in, but I wanted to ask you, with the new fiscal year starting and what happened with the last fiscal year, what are you seeing that might be a good call for action for all of us on how to conquer this fiscal year going forward?
Yeah, love that question. I think that DEF as a community has a big opportunity to partner effectively to actually help shape change, right? There's obviously your 4-year procurement cycles and following traditional process, and there's room and reason to have that, and we need that. I'm not saying to light it all on fire, okay? I actually don't think the system is as broken as some people. But I do think that sometimes when we're in the fight, we forget that there's other people next to us in the same fight. And we dismiss partnerships by going the traditional path. And so I am very curious to make more partnerships, for our organization and figure out ways to get around, well, that's the way we've always done it, and really do something different to get things to field.
I think you made a very excellent point, touching on this is how we've always done it, or something that I think all of us have heard as innovators and as acquisition warriors, where people say, no, you can't do that because we've never done that before, or because this is something new. For people that I think are new professionals or just getting into this innovative space, what would you say is the most important piece of advice that you can give them that to motivate them throughout the day?
Yeah, I think sometimes what the royal we, the community, does a bad job of, honestly, is defending with some data why doing something new could actually benefit. And we're bad at communicating the risk, right? So, maybe let's take an office who has never used other transactional authorities ever in their life, and they're very risk averse, even though OTAs are used all the time now. If you would present a new way of doing something to somebody like that, who has quite literally never been on that battlefield of OTAs, without showing data of other customers, other solutions, other cost savings, of here's the process, here's how, and here's how we can actually measure success and returns for the government, then you're going to get a no, we're not going to learn a new process because we just do it this way, right? And so I really challenge people that if you can't figure out a way to communicate the metrics to actually shape and reduce risk and translate that to somebody where it makes sense in their language, ask for help from the community to do that. Hey, we've never done this before. I've done it here, here, and here. Here's what we learned. Here's the metrics of where we had cost savings and efficiency and velocity with the government, right? Speed in the right direction. And use the data to help make the case. And I think that's something that I'm trying to get better at, and I have seen results so far.
Awesome, thank you. And we do have some questions that have come in. So Mike is asking, during your research, what was the biggest surprise, or what did you not expect to find?
Oh, this is awesome. I'm laughing. So some of you know I used to work for Frank Kendall, and so I have a great relationship with him, and I of course asked him for his opinion on something, and the questions that I laid out for him, I didn't really realize, but they had a bias of positivity, right? Of warriors and what makes them and all these things. And he responded back to me. He said, Joy, you have a very optimistic version of a definition of a warrior. I'm not sure if my insight's going to be any use to you. And I said, sir, the reason why I'm doing this research from, I clearly interviewed people on both sides of the political spectrum for reasons, because I actually want a differing opinion. And he was the one who made a great case about why there's civilian control of the military, actually. And it's something I never thought about. And how, if a warrior gone wrong, let's say, does have the inclination to just be combative. And if anybody has seen the movie 1917 is the exact example of what Frank was talking about, where there's a colonel where he has been, waiting for years, planning this big mission during World War, and they get a new piece of intelligence. But he has so much conviction on this combat that he was dismissing the facts because he had this natural inclination to be combative versus take everything in. And I just never thought about that ever in my life. I'm like, be a warrior, do stuff, adapt, overcome, let's go, right? And the way that Frank used data to actually make his case and say, no, this is where warriors can be really dangerous if it's one-dimensional. He really rounded that out for me and kind of called me out for being overly positive about it without supporting facts. So I really appreciated that. And it made me chuckle and surprised me. I learned something.
Thank you for that. Okay, so our next question is, people who are here and participate in DEF are clearly motivated and strive to follow the principles you've shared. Any thoughts on how to inspire others to do the same?
Something that I've been bad at the last 3 months, very transparent person in case you guys haven't figured that out yet, is balance. I've kind of failed at that for a lot of reasons because I'm overly curious about too many things. And so what I have personally done recently is help tag people into my life to keep me accountable for that equation, right? For work things that I deeply care about, for physical fitness things like boxing that I also deeply care about, for my friends, for my family. And I've actually started protecting time. I have like a little pie of a third for professional things, right? A third for just making me a better person, which would be hanging out with friends and, going to the gym. I like that, reading, blah. And then a third for recovery and recharge and being introspective. And some days I fail miserably. Some weeks I fail miserably, and other days I knock it out of the park. But I've actually tagged people in my life to keep me accountable, to make sure that I don't burn everything on one of those thirds, because if one of the thirds goes away, then the other two you have nothing left to give, right? So I think making time tactically to go on walks and actually force yourself to think about what you care about, why you're doing what you're doing in this industry. Some of us just like follow it because, and we haven't slowed down enough to ask why. And once you understand your why, it's a lot easier to find balance and make sure that you make room for other things in your life as well. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. That was a really good question from Kevin. A question from David. He asks, what are your biggest challenges as a small business owner in understanding current defense problems, and how do companies learn about where they can be most helpful?
Biggest problems as a small business owner. I like to think of it as challenges, and I like challenges versus problems. Problems are a little scary sometimes because you feel helpless and like there's no solution to it, right? So the challenge for Boone in particular, we tripled the size of our company during COVID, not because of COVID, but just because of the kind of relentless pursuit of growth, right? So I think 75% of our company hasn't met each other in person and hasn't been able to collaborate in the office. And you do just get things done in person. You do, right? We've struck in a great balance of remote work, which is awesome. But I think for us, that growth was a really interesting challenge to tackle, to maintain culture and full integration and teamwork in the same way that you can if you triple the size of your company in the same room, right? And in particular, where I have the greatest challenge in that is translating what I do know to other folks, and then bringing experts such as Dolores, to name one of them, to the company to own it and grow it in a way that I don't have the ability to do anymore, right? You get to a point, you'll hear a lot of really famous CEOs, well, I just hire people smarter than me. And it wasn't until recently that it actually rings true, right? Where somebody actually owns the domain. And when people have control of their own outcomes and their own growth path, small businesses will grow exponentially. It's challenging for a founder and a small business owner if you're trying to hold everything. And it's scary to let go. And so, you definitely have to find ways as a small business to do that for the longevity of the company. In terms of resources, there's traditional resources that are online. DEF is an amazing resource. Shameless plug, but it is, to meet other people and be able to exchange ideas. But the other thing that I have just started doing is, now that some events are opening back up, I actually go to non-defense events. Okay. I go to events with, there's a great organization called the Entrepreneurs Organization. And I'll go to a lot of their events, and people in that community have nothing to do with national security. And at first I was a little fearful because I'm like, what am I going to talk about? They're not going to understand my world. Right. And it's amazing what you can learn and the ideas that it'll spark for whatever you're doing, whether you're in government, in industry, in a small business, and a large, of what to do, and how to grow, to just get outside of your kind of like core wolf pack. Right. So I would look for opportunities there to put yourself in rooms that you usually wouldn't go to. And you'll learn a lot and get inspired in a way that just the same wolf pack doesn't have the ability to do. But don't leave the wolf pack either, because they're important.
Thank you for that. I think that's a really great giveaway, or a really good takeaway from, being able to learn from others, but also have people around you that inspire you.
Yeah.
Michelle has a question for you as well. She said, love the give a damn mindset and emphasis on taking action. Joy, any recent examples / moments to share and inspire?
I have so much. I'm very, you guys, I have amazing people in my life. Like, I'm inspired every day. That's who I am. Everybody calls me the Energizer Bunny. But it's actually true. And I get very excited by everybody's feats. I think the most recently epically inspiring moment was I had the opportunity to stand up a volunteer mission for all things Afghanistan, and Boone was able to volunteer some of our time to help with that. The thing that's the most inspiring is, regardless of, it's a touchy subject, right? I'm not going to get into if we agree, if we disagree, if it was good, if it was bad, none of that. What matters is there was people from every side of the political spectrum who came together and rose to their highest value to get people to safety. And the thank yous are now starting to pour in as folks start to resettle in the US and in other countries. And that was one of the most magical things that I've had the opportunity to be a part of outside of building Boone, in my experience working in government. It was really, really special. There's a lot of times where people talk about swim lanes, right? And staying out of each other's way. But, as builders, as entrepreneurs, as innovators, it's also really hard to not all run toward the same soccer ball, because you just want to see it go and it's fun to work together. And this was such a high stakes situation. It was incredible to see how many people from all different walks of life just rise to their highest value and truly stay out of each other's way and move, tens of thousands of people to safety. And that was pretty special over the last 90 days.
Thank you. And David wanted me to let you know that he said, thank you. Also wanted to get your point of view on how you all find out about the real deal challenges defense is facing. Smiley face.
Thank you. How do we find out about it? Honestly, conversations with people, right? If you go into a new relationship, any new relationship, right? Business, friendships, in a, subordinate support role, whatever that is, and you go with this genuine sense of curiosity. I'm going to kind of go in reverse of what I talked about in the remarks. If you go in with a sense of curiosity, you will very quickly learn something about someone, whether they're on the Hill and they're writing bills, or they're, a contracting officer thinking about new contracting scope, or a program manager, or anything like that. If you're going in with a genuine sense of curiosity, not for the transactional business deal, but to actually understand what they give a damn about, then you can start offering them value, right? And what I mean is, if I know that Michelle Courier cares a lot about human capital development for young acquisition professionals, because I took the time to understand that that's like what has her light up a room. Now, when I see articles or events that further that personal mission for her, I can then share that, right? So you move from being curious about a relationship to then now I'm offering somebody value of something they care about that they might not have seen. And now we can develop that relationship further, right? And then to take it to a final step, then you can actually move on being a dependable person in the market and in the network to get unfettered access and truth and transparency about the biggest issues that the Defense Department is facing. I personally am very inspired by the next generation leaders that I get to work with every day. But I am also scared about not being able to retain talent on the industry side as well as the government side in terms of what next generation challenges and solutions look like. So I'm interested in tackling that more. But that's how you can get transparent, unfettered feedback on what the truth is.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that's it for our questions that I've seen come through the portal. And give it a couple seconds just to see if anything else chimes in. But everyone's giving you claps and applause and thanking you for inspiring them on this wonderful day. So thank you so much for presenting, and thank you so much for taking your time to share the valuable stories about your experiences, but also what we can all do to contribute to the challenges of today and tomorrow.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, guys. Happy Friday. Go forth and conquer. And please do not be shy in collaborating out there. Okay. Good luck.